It is time for your WIN podcast for super busy professionals sharing transformational moments. Your host, Chu Tang.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to your WIN podcast. Today, I have my very special guest, Alex, with us. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, Chu. Thank you so much. Really great to be on the podcast here. I appreciate the invite.
Thank you. So, Alex, I just want to ask you one question, which is share with us a scene in your life where you felt a transformation that changed your life forever from that point on.
It's such a good question, and I think that's something that everybody should consider. For me, what's led me to where I am now, I was teaching at a middle school in actually teaching at an elementary school, I should say, K-8 charter school in exurban Arizona, so kind of a satellite city of Phoenix. And I think being a teacher during the pandemic, during COVID, it really brought a lot of things to light that maybe I hadn't really considered before. One of those things was how the built environment can really impact your well-being in different ways.
Okay.
I was living in a city, but a small city called Casa Grande, and it was very, your typical Arizona kind of suburban city where everything is kind of spread out. You drive everywhere. And I think working with kids, it made me realize how little agency we give children in North America, in American cities. And I started to see how, when students would come up to me and talk about, how they really feel and, how, issues of, depression or of just feeling kind of lost or disconnected. I was starting to kind of connect the dots in terms of how, being a kid going to school is hard enough, but especially in a pandemic, and you have, certain things are a little bit different. There's a lot of issues in terms of, accessibility to things that you want to do, and you can't do things normally. But it wasn't just the pandemic. The pandemic kind of exacerbated a lot of the inequities that we have in our cities and neighborhoods. And I think, having students come up to me about, real issues of mental health, and really hearing about their stories and their perspective and how they weren't really set up to live like very normal social lives, I think in certain neighborhoods in certain cities in not only the US, but all across the world, but especially here, because I think we've built cities in a way that is for cars and not for humans. And so when you're a kid, you don't really have that opportunity to live a normal life. You have to have your parents drive you everywhere, especially in the heat of Arizona, like 120, degrees heat. You're kind of cooped up in a box, and you don't really have opportunities to really get outside and live, a real like life that's connected with other humans. So kind of hearing my students' stories, and then also, I started a soccer league when I was in Arizona too, and it was during the pandemic, and there was a lot of data that showed that, youth sports are fine. This is a good way to get outside. You're not going to spread, any germs by playing youth sports. So it was a safe thing to start, and it really made me realize the importance of placekeeping as an ideology in terms of creating places to be. This was a youth soccer league that kind of brought the whole community out, whereas the other soccer leagues got shut down because of COVID-19. Our little school league was grades K to 5. It provided a safe place for kids to just be themselves with their friends. Physical activity was something that wasn't really happening a lot at that time. So I think all of that put together, it made me think about, and it made me question how we've designed our cities. Have we done it for human health? Have we done it for maximum connectivity? Have we done it for maximum accessibility? if you are not able to drive a car, are you able to have a normal life in a lot of cities, especially in cities out west like Arizona,
LA.
cities in Arizona and LA. I'm from Los Angeles, so growing up, I had a lot of these ideas. I just didn't know how to like contextualize it or define it. That's when I kind of, got lost in a few wormholes on YouTube in terms of urban planning and what that's all about. That's led me here. I'm at Georgia Tech. I'm currently in a master's program studying city and regional planning.
Oh,
So all those together, I'm starting to realize how important education and communication are as well in terms of how you can be a better planner or a better urban designer and how you can actually work with communities, hear their stories. What are the problems in a place? How can you improve that while working with the people who live there, as opposed to just saying, I know best, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's very much a multidisciplinary process where we can work together in terms of maximizing physical and mental well-being, which is something that really inspires me.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it reminded me that I was very fortunate that when I was in Cambodia, it was quite a walkable city, and we would play with the neighborhood and all that, and I don't remember ever getting inside a car.
It's really freeing when you don't have to. I live a mile. I'm really fortunate to live a mile from Georgia Tech, which is where I work and study right now. And my mental health is way better when I don't have to commute in a car. I just think it's so much safer. I'm not anti-car. I just think that there's got to be other options for people to get around, because the more people that drive, just the more car traffic and congestion we have. We need to figure out, instead of just forcing the issue, we need to start designing cities that are a little bit healthier and safer for all people who don't, necessarily can't afford a car or can't or aren't able to drive one or too young to drive one. And I think that a lot of times in these neighborhoods and cities and cities all across America, we've kind of separated land uses as opposed to like figuring out what works well with each other. It's not always the best way to go about things, making sure everything's as far apart, making sure that your school is really far away from where you live, or your job is miles away. So it's really cool to think about how, we all spend our lives, what our carbon footprint is, what we're kind of putting into this society.
I mean, I used to live in Vancouver, and it's a very walkable city. And the funny thing was, even it was snow, it was very cold. We had a car, but we chose to ride our bike to work.
That's awesome.
Because the parking is expensive, and then plus we just love it. Because there's a beautiful seawall that we could ride the bike, and we just love it. And if I have a choice between walking and biking versus cars my last option. And it's very bad for the body to be sitting in the car.
I mean, you think about spending, people spend 2 hours or more a day on commutes, and that you think about how much wasted time that is when you can be doing other things. You can be standing up, you can be outside with, in nature, which is, as humans, we're supposed to be integrated with nature. That's like our, it's in our biology. And we separate ourselves from our communities. We end up getting into these social media silos more, I feel, where we become more divided and more angry, seeing look at all what they're doing on, people, look what the other is doing on social media. But if you're kind of experiencing reality with other people more in a environment that still maintains, natural elements, it's not saying that we have to all be living in, little congested boxes. We're already kind of doing that in suburban neighborhoods.
Like I don't even know my neighbors really.
So I think it's good to design, but a lot of that's not anybody's fault. I think it's just we haven't necessarily designed places that are that allow us to have those experiences, those interactive kind of like, spontaneous meetups. You don't have that as much with your community or your world. If you're going from your door to your car, and then your car to your office, or it's just a cycle that just, I think that people are starting to realize that there are other ways to live, and that's one way to do it, not having to do that all the time for everything.
That's awesome. I didn't know that's such a program. It's awesome. So
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, urban planning is a really interesting idea, and it's not just like you have to be a city planner or a, an urban designer or anything. It's a matter of just kind of taking ownership with your day-to-day existence,
Mm.
realizing how you can benefit your community. I mean, from if one day you want to bike to work instead of drive. I know biking isn't, cycling isn't necessarily feasible for everybody as well. But it's one less car on the road. If you
Yeah.
can, take the bus one day or take, some kind of public
Yeah.
transportation.
Yeah.
Obviously, the infrastructure is lacking in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Um, well,
Mhm.
that's what kind of inspired me to get into this field as well, is kind of realizing that there's a lot of work to be done in terms of kind of
Yeah.
how we can have more people
Mm.
living healthier lives and less people just getting stuck in traffic for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
rest of their lives. So yeah,
Wow.
I think it's really interesting. There's a lot to be done, but it's also just good to educate ourselves about what kind of data is out there on how we can improve our cities, our neighborhoods, our lives, right? Our
Yeah.
families, our
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
existence. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean that's quite a transformation.
Cool. All right. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah. I mean, I've had a few transformations, in my life. I think that's the most recent one that is the
Mhm.
most impactful, I think, and what kind of inspired me to like change careers, and kind of build upon my education background, but do something in a little bit of a different,
Mhm.
uh, capacity where you're still working with, you're working with people, you're educating, but you're also, it's very collaborative as education is too. I think as a teacher, I always learn from my students. So you learn so much from communities and learning how people live and what
Mhm.
people are doing. So yeah,
That's cool. That's cool. So if you guys like this episode, come back. And then until then, stay happy and hopeful. Thank you. Thank
stay
you.
happy and hopeful, everybody.
So what do you think of the podcast?
This is great. I think that transformations happen all the time, and I think it's good for people to kind of reflect on
Mm.
what moments have been those like light bulb moments, I think, for people.
Mhm.
And there's so many different ways that you can transform. It can be something, like a mindset. It could be,
Yeah.
an idea. It can
Or
be,
event.
changing a career.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's wonderful to have people share their stories in a very interesting format that I think is applicable to so many different people, and I think you can really reach a lot of different, broad kind of broad themes with this format. So I think it's great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I want to ask you something totally unrelated. Do you have a favorite celebrity?
Favorite celebrity is kind of tough. So I'm a big soccer fan. So I
Okay, it's a
really,
soccer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like soccer celebrities. So I think right
Yeah.
now my favorite soccer player is uh probably Weston McKennie. He plays in Italy, but he plays for the US national team, and it's a really
Oh,
exciting time in soccer too in this country, in this part of the world, because the World Cup is coming in a few years. The US, Mexico, and Canada will be hosting. And
wow.
as a former soccer coach myself, and a current Sunday league player, I played for fun. And I love watching the game. I think it's a sport that really brings people together. You talk about communities,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
and I think like when I've traveled, I've never had a tough time kind of getting to know somebody based off of just knowing a little bit about soccer. Because I think there's
yeah,
always
yeah.
there's always places everywhere in the world you'll go. People are interested in this game where people kick a ball around. But yeah, so I think taking a little bit of a different answer than you probably your listeners
No,
might
no,
have thought about.
it's still someone,
Um,
it's still celebrity, like if I ask a tennis player, they probably would pick a tennis player, champion, right? Yeah. So have you ever want to meet him in person?
Weston McKennie would be really cool to meet. Yeah. I have his jersey. I got a jersey with his name and number on it. And
So
yeah, he
you're
seems
a
like a cool
fan.
guy. Yeah, big fan. Yeah. My dad got
Oh,
the jersey for me from the last World Cup. But yeah, he's a cool guy, good player, good energy, good attitude. Um,
oh,
and I think that's really important to be like he's always like talking with everybody on the field. Like, he's like, it seems like he can be friends with the players on the opposing team as much as his own team. And that's always
Yeah.
good energy and
Oh,
to have a
okay.
good competitive mindset, like work hard when you have to, and then also kind of be, provide good energy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really cool. But I will say, just to go, because you have a movie poster behind you, obviously, Finding Dory, to go the movie route. I know you only asked for one celebrity, but
That's okay.
I just watched Dune Part 2. I'm a huge Dune fan. I think
Oh,
Timothée Chalamet is incredible in that movie. So it'd be cool to meet him, or any of those actors in that movie, because it's really beautifully done. I don't know if you've seen Dune, but
my husband does.
it's
He's a
absolutely
big fan. Yeah.
fantastic. I think
Yeah.
they've really done a great job in like making you, like transporting you. It's a very sensory experience to make you feel like you're living on this desert planet. So
Did you watch the original Dune?
So I saw the first one. Yeah. So from this new series, I've seen both of them. Yeah, and I've read the
Okay.
first
Okay.
book. I'm inspired to
Oh,
read some more of the books,
okay.
because it's a really, really amazing world that Frank Herbert's built. I think they're really portraying it well. So yeah,
So how's the book compared to the movie?
I think they've done a pretty good job with it. I
Oh,
mean, they took some creative, what's the word? Freedoms, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good. They've combined the first and the second book into the two movies that they've released.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to reading more about how the story kind of unfolds before if there are other movies
Oh,
that come out. So yeah, Dune.
cool.
Yeah, great. I'd
Cool.
love to meet any of those people that made that movie.
Cool. Cool. I probably should check it out. And now that you recommend it.
It's very beautiful. Yeah, it's amazing to experience.
Yeah, I love beautiful cinematography.
Yeah. Oh, and it's really up there. Yeah. Very. Yeah, I think the way it's filmed and presented, it's like I've said, it's a very sensory experience. So like it's almost like
Oh,
you could feel, they want you to feel what it's like to be on this like desolate,
oh, okay.
sandy, very treacherous
Okay.
place.
I wonder where they filming.
I actually don't know. Yeah, it might be. I don't
Jordan?
know. I don't want to speculate, but it's definitely a very sandy, northern
Oh,
Africa, I would feel, or Mojave Desert kind of thing. Yeah.
oh. I'll look it up. I always
Yeah,
curious
yeah, you
about
should.
shooting direction. I mean,
Yeah.
location. Yeah, yeah.
I should look into it. I think they did film some of it, because some of it's very like Petra-esque in terms of Jordan. I think they have
Yeah, yeah. We've been to
Jordan.
Petra. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
been there?
Yeah, like Game of Thrones. Some of them were filmed in Iceland. So when I went to Iceland, I particularly looking, for those locations. Yeah. We were in Petra. We actually hiked 3 days in Petra, in the Petra Valley.
Wow.
Yeah,
Incredible. Yeah, the architecture and the way they've integrated
yeah, yeah.
the environment there is really, really impressive.
Right,
So I'd
right.
love to visit. Yeah, someday.
Cool. I'll definitely will invite you back, and then you can talk about some other subject.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Chu,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
look forward to that. Look forward to
yeah,
hearing the episode and all the other episodes that you have coming up. It's
yeah,
really, really great you're doing this. So
yeah.
thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share. See you soon at Your Win Podcast.